Oh man, there's so much to talk about food. And it's kind of crazy because in El Salvador, there are so many differences. So there's a ton of differences in any Latin American country. So like in Central America and South America and Mexico between like the words. You know, one word in El Salvador means a completely different thing in Honduras, and it means a completely different thing in Costa Rica. And so that was always kind of fun because you'd go to like a different place, and I remember, you know, in El Salvador, at every meal they eat tortillas that are like this. They're corn tortillas, and they're just like this big, and they're like that thick, and it's just like of corn flour. And you know, like I kind of was wondering why that they would like always eat these, and it's just because I think they get so many carbs from it that the work that they do there, the majority of the Salvadorian people, is like manual labor. Everyone there walks around with a machete on their hip. So that was kind of scary when I first got there. And then aside from that, we haven't really addressed this, but like there's a ton of gangs. I mean, the gang problem there is unreal, and so we can talk about that later. But in front of a lot of stores, any bank, any utility, water, electricity, and just in front of almost every single store, there is an armed security guard with like a sawed-off shotgun or like a machine gun, and then there's soldiers constantly patrolling the streets, right? So that was kind of a little tangent, but their work is really hard. So a lot of their food is just like high caloric intake. Like they just try and get as many calories as they can so they can keep working. They all work, a lot of them work in the coffee fields, which is just grueling. We would go out and help them every once in a while. That is tough work. And these guys make a living out of it. They do it from sun up to sundown. And they just get paid like $3 a day, which is horrible because they use American currency down there. They used to have the colon. That was their currency. But a couple years back, they switched to the dollar. Which kind of had a lot of negative side effects for their economy, because they used to be able to buy everything and have a lot. You know, they used to just be very comfortable. They could, you know, almost anyone could have all the food that they wanted. But once they switched to the dollar, the people selling still sold in the amount that they sold in the colon. But now it was the dollar, and they were only getting paid $4 when they were getting paid like 50 colones each day. So all of a sudden, no one has any money for anything. So okay, that was kind of crazy. Another side tangent, but they've got these things called pupusas down in El Salvador, and they are delicious. I mean, it's the same concept as that tortilla. And I learned how to make them. So we'd be contacting and see a lady making tortillas, and I'd be like, "Hey, let me help you," and just run over there, and she's just shocked because some white boy's like, "Who is this kid?" And I run over there, and I'm making tortillas with her and just talking with her about the gospel, which is so fun. But the pupusas are like, you make a tortilla, you like kind of like beat the dough down into like a little saucer, and then you like make a cup with your hand. You kind of punch it so the dough is like this, and then you put like beans and cheese and like chicken inside, and then you close it up and you flatten it out again, and then you put it on the little saucer. They call them comals, like this big kind of like frying pan dish to cook, and they were the most delicious things ever. Towards the end of my mission, I would eat like 3 in the morning and like 5 at night. I ate so many pupusas because they are so good. And they make pupusas like shrimp pupusas, bacon pupusas, garlic pupusas. Like they make pupusas out of anything you can think of. So it was awesome. Like the main ones are like bean and cheese. They do one that's called loroco, which is like this herb thing that they sell down there or have down there. I'm sure that we have it here. I just don't know what it's called in English. And then they do like chicken. And then the most famous ones down there are chicharrón, which is like pork. But we couldn't eat pork down there because it had a lot of parasites. Because it was just raised like drinking water from the nasty gutter and eating trash and stuff. So, you know, they would always talk about this one parasite that the pork, like the pig, carried, which was like a parasitic worm that would like go into your brain, and it would like eat parts of your brain, and then like, you know, eat like the back of like someone's eye, and they would like constantly have a headache. So it was like a real thing, these worms, and it was crazy. So So I stayed away from pork, but we had a lot of rules for food. Like we had to always drink purified water, which is common in a lot of countries, but we couldn't eat like lettuce, anything that they had to wash with water. We couldn't eat a lot of fruit because there were a lot of pores, so it was hard to clean them well. We could if we like soaked them in water with bleach in it, but I was never like, when I got home at night, I was exhausted. And I was like, the only thing I wanted to do was take the numbers for the day and then like plan, study a little bit and go to bed. Like I was not going to eat, right? Or take the time to soak fruit in bleach water. I was like, that's going to take forever. So when I first got there, my companion, he was a native. So like natives, oftentimes were, as far as the food rules go, they were not super obedient in like my experience. Because they were like, I've been eating this like forever. It's like, I've always eaten chicharron. Like, I don't like, who's not going to eat that? So they'd like eat whatever. And so we'd go over to investigators' houses, my first area. And they're like, oh, we made a salad. And I like, they go over the health rules the very first day, but you're in shock. You have no idea what's going on. So you don't remember everything. But I was like, I think I remember something about lettuce, but like, I'm not sure if we can't eat it or like if I'm supposed to wash it well. I don't remember. So they give me this salad and I look at my companion. He's like, oh yeah. So I'm just like chowing down. He would always drink tap water because like, that's what he grew up drinking. He didn't drink filtered water. So I'm just drinking tap water. And by the end of my first change, I had like amoebas and parasites, and so I just was having a rough time, right? And not to be vulgar in any way, but it was anything that went in just came right out. I could not keep any food down at all, well, in my body, because either the parasites would just tear through it in my stomach, or the amoebas were just making my intestines and my like system just go crazy. So it was crazy. Like it was a really fun way to start the mission, just because it was like, I'm already sick. Like this is crazy. This is awesome. And I'd like meet my buddies at district meeting, because one of my mission MTC companions was in my first district. So we'd like get together and I'd be like, dude, I'm like so sick. And he's like, I am too. I was like, it's so cool. I was like, this is the mission. Like this is what everyone would talk about. And so other than that, I mean, they have, the food there is really simple. They have some things that some people make really, really like complicated, I guess, or like really delicate food. I don't know how you say that, but just like they like cuisine, I guess they sometimes can make. But most of the time, every morning we'd eat like beans, and they liquefy their beans. So they put all their beans in a blender and just liquefy it up. So we'd eat liquefied beans with rice, and then like this cream. They've got this cream down there that everyone's like, oh yeah, it's like sour cream, but it's like 3,000 times better, and it's like not super sour like sour cream. So it's just this like super special cream that they eat, and they mix it with everything, and then they always eat plátanos fritos, like fried bananas, fried plantains, because like there are just fruit trees everywhere. And there's huge banana trees and huge mango trees and huge like avocado trees, and there's a ton of other fruit names that I don't know, like jocotes and mamones, and they have all these different fruits that, because the soil is so fertile, they just grow. Like people will eat a mango, throw the seed, and in like a year or two, there's like a massive mango tree. And that's like not even a joke. They have these humongous trees, and they have fruit trees that grow so quickly because the soil is so fertile. So it's like, it's super cool. It's awesome. So we'd just be walking, and like a mango would fall off of a random like mango tree, and you just pick it up and eat it. Or like you'd be like teaching investigators or street contacting, and they'd just be like, have you guys eaten today? We're like, no. They're like, well, here's like a bunch of mangoes, and they just give you a bag full of like enormous mangoes or avocados, and you just eat them the rest of the day as you're walking around, or you wait till you get home. Or, I mean, they just have so much fruit down there. So, breakfast we'd eat like beans and rice, and like fried bananas, and that was just delicious. But in the afternoon, we'd usually eat something similar. Like there was always almost rice and there was always almost beans or like fried bananas. But there was always some kind of meat. They eat lots of meat, specifically chicken. There's like a saying down there. I don't know if it translates like perfectly, but it's a house without chickens or chicks is without grace in God's eyes. And it was like, whoa. It's like, that's kind of weird. But it's just every house has chickens. They all have chickens because they wait for the chickens to lay eggs. So there's other chickens and little chicks running around, and then they kill the chickens and eat them. So they always have chickens, and there's always chicken. Like they make tons of chicken soup with like the whole chicken in there. So you'll get like a chicken leg or like the head and like the eyes or like, it's just crazy. They eat tons of fish as well. And they like leave the eyes in. So you're like poking at the eyes and eating them. And like you just like pick all like the meat you can off of it. And like they don't take any of the bones out. Like they like don't really like gut them either. Like you just kind of eat the fish as is, which is like cool. It was awesome. They have some really cool desserts. One's called a buñuelo, which is like the most delicious thing ever. It's yuca. So yuca is like a root that they would eat, which is like delicious. So these street vendors have these bags, and they put yuca in them, and they like shake them up with salsa, and that's like one of the really common ways to eat them. But in this one area of my mission, they had what was called buñuelos, which in another part of the country meant something completely different. So it was kind of funny. But these buñuelos they would like smash up the yuca, and then they would fry it, like deep fry it into these balls, and then like these yuca balls, and then they would put them in bags and add this like syrup juice thing that was red, that it was the most delicious thing. I think I gained like 15 pounds in that area just eating buñuelos. They were so delicious. I would just like be walking around, like someone would slam the door in our face, and I'd be like, you know what, we need to pick me up, let's go get buñuelos. So we'd go get buñuelos, and oh, they were delicious. They were so good. So they eat like, they've got some really, really good desserts. They always do what's that called? The arroz con leche, rice and milk. So they do the rice milk thing, which is delicious. And they'll make like rice pudding every once in a while. Not a ton. Something they do that's kind of funny, I always thought was funny, was like on holidays, they'll eat like chicken sandwiches. That's what they eat. They call them panes con pollo. And you're like, okay, it's like a chicken sandwich. And so they'll make these huge subs, and they'll just load them with chicken. And sometimes they'll even throw turkey in there. So you're just like, what? It's like not really a chicken sandwich. They'll throw turkey in there, and then they just put tons of lettuce on it, and like tons of radishes and tons of carrots. So this thing is just this massive sub. I mean, it puts Subway and Blimpies and everything to shame. And then they douse it in this like chicken gravy thing that they make. And it is the most delicious thing in the world. When I first heard it, I was like, okay, well, for Christmas we're going to eat chicken sandwiches. Like, okay, cool. But like, oh my gosh, it was delicious. They're so good. And as a missionary, as in the States, I'm sure we ate a little bit less than the States missionaries, but we would be like running around because people wanted to give us dinner appointments on holidays, and you're meeting with like families that you're teaching. By the end of it, you're just about to explode. And these things are so big, and everyone does them. Everyone does panes con pollo. I think the craziest thing I ate was my first Christmas. Not craziest. I had some pretty crazy stuff. But one of the coolest things that I ate was like my first Christmas was only 5 days into the mission field, because I got out there on December 20th. And I remember we ate duck. We ate like fried duck, and like we ate like the duck tongue and like the duck feet and stuff. Duck feet were like the weirdest, rubberiest thing, and the duck tongue was like really squishy. But the duck itself was delicious. So good. Way good. And they eat a lot of like, they'll do like stuffed peppers. You'll eat stuffed peppers a lot, which are really good, and they're like breaded. Or they'll eat like breaded chicken. And they do eat beef every once in a while, but but it's not as much as the other stuff. They've got stuff that like people know of like from Mexico. You know, they have empanadas, and they have like quesadillas, and they have like other stuff like that. But they all have different meanings. Like an empanada is kind of the same as a Mexican one, but a tamale completely different. It's like it's kind of like the same form, but it's mostly just like liquefied corn flour that they like put and wrap in like banana leaves and then put and like set them to cook. And it's like, oh, they're kind of gross. They were just like always like really squishy, and like, oh, I did not like them at first. By the end of my mission, I got to like them, especially when they would do one. They called it a ticuco, and it was like a tamale, but with just beans inside. So it was like a little bit of that corn flour stuff, but just like beans and like mixed with chicken on the inside, and it was delicious. And they would do, they would make, so a quesadilla is just sweetbread. It's like, it's kind of like cornbread here for us, but like sweeter. So it's like kind of that same consistency, but like really, really sweet and just delicious. I mean, when people would make us quesadilla, it was a special occasion. Like, awesome. Loved it. Trying to think of any more foods I ate in El Salvador. I'm sure there's tons of them. We made one called, there's not really a translation. The English translation is like pinches, because they would take a tortilla that they would make and they would like pinch it just so there were like openings in it so you could kind of stuff stuff in it. And then you would like cover that in beans and then put shredded chicken on it that was like cooked. And then you would put like guacamole avocado on top of that. Then you would put cheese on it, and then you would like cover it in like chili sauce. And it was so good. It was like, I only ate those in like one area of mine because they were like, it was harder to make because it was a wealthier area. So in the wealthier area, they had money to make them. That was delicious. But, and like I never served in Belize, kind of like I was saying, but I went over there. And they had these things called fry jacks, which were like these big, like deep fried flour tortillas filled with like kind of the same as like a pupusa. It's like chicken and beans and cheese, but it was just like on a massive scale, and it was way more deep fried. Like a pupusa is just like cooked. It was deep fried in like oil and stuff. It was super greasy, but it was delicious. So that's kind of what I remember from like Belize as like the good food. I was only there for a week, but so good. I loved the food. And so this isn't so much about the food, but the people there. I mean, we'd be contacting, and everyone invites you in. Everyone invites you in to either just talk. And I guess not everyone invites you in, because we definitely got the door slammed in our face like every missionary. But I mean, we would be contacting, and someone would say, you know what, I'm a devout Catholic. I don't really want anything to do with your church, but have you eaten dinner tonight? And we'd be like, no. So like at the end of my mission, I kind of honestly like stopped saying yes, because sometimes you would just like go in there and they'd feed you and you'd like kind of waste time. But at the beginning of my mission, I'd be like, no, like why? And they'd be like, oh, okay, come on in. Then they'd like yell to their little kid, go to the store and get this for the missionaries. And we'd be like, what? Like they're members of a different church. And they'd just like make us like beans and rice, and then they'd go and buy like a soda, because every meal they go and either get a Coke or like a Fanta. But as missionaries, we couldn't drink Coca-Cola for some reason, but we could drink like Fanta and other like sodas. So we'd always like have a Fanta there, like orange Fanta. That's like the only Fanta they have, but it's delicious because it's made with like cane sugar or something outside of the States. So it's way better than the Fanta here. I came back and tried it, and I was like, this is disgusting. I don't even like it. But the people there are just super hospitable. Like everyone has no money, but they all try and give you as much as they can, which is super cool. Kind of like the food dynamic. Like there are people everywhere on the streets with like these huge flat, kind of like massive frying pans, just like hot plates, I guess you could call them. And there's just constantly ladies out there just making tortillas, and people are going and buying them. And so they're just always making tortillas, and people go place an order and be like, hey, I'll be back in 20 minutes, and come with their like little cloths and wrap up their tortillas and go back and have, breakfast. And then they'll do the same for lunch, and they'll do the same for dinner, and the same with pupusa. So there's always people out. making food. And that was like kind of cool. I just loved the dynamic of El Salvador because it was like chaotic, like all the time. Like my family, there's 9 of us in my family, so I have 6 brothers and sisters. So there's like always something going on, and so like El Salvador was perfect for me because there's always crazy stuff going on, and there's people everywhere, tons of people to talk to. But it was fun. I liked it.